Hello, Bookaholics. This is Deirdre Pippins, and today we are joined by Nigerian writer Chioma Nnani, and she has some surprises for us. You won't believe her story and how she got started. So hold on tight to your chairs, and we'll get started right after this. Hello. Welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Hi.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to dive in and talk to you about your books.
Likewise, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. So let me start from this point. I'm always curious because I have done certain series called the Writer's Workshop. I'm always curious what started your writer's journey.
Wow. So I've always written from when I was just really small. I can't even remember the age. I've just always written. Uh, but the time and the culture in which I grew up,
Mhm.
the only jobs that were sort of the ideal to have were doctor, lawyer, and engineer, right? We had books, we saw books and all that, but it just wasn't, I don't know, like we didn't even think, oh, I'm going to grow up and write a book. It just wasn't a thing. And then, like I said, I've always written, but with the thought or just the idea that I was going to be a lawyer at some point. And then I went to uni. I went to the University of Kent in Canterbury in the UK. Got
Okay.
there, final exam. So this is I've done the entire degree. My final day, last exam. Wake up in the morning. I'm like, I don't want to be a lawyer. And
Oh,
it's like, oh gosh.
I know.
I know. And so I'm freaking out and I'm thinking, no, no, go and write this exam and you can deal with whatever this is later. So I've finished my degree and truly I didn't want to become a lawyer. I had a place in law school in the city of Oxford, but I didn't take it. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? Because it's one thing to know for sure what you don't want to do, but it's another thing to not know what you want to do. So I wound up at a medical legal firm just outside of London, so still in the UK, and I was working as an administrative assistant. And this is, I mean, just for it was medical legal firm, and it was some people would say it was a very small job, but it was what I could get at the time, and it worked. So
Right.
what we did was we worked for part of our job was we worked for psychiatrists. So in the UK, say somebody commits when someone commits a crime and they send a person to court and they are trying to figure out even if the person's actions are not in doubt, so yes, they did it, but they're trying to figure out the state of mind of the person to figure out whether they're going to go to jail or they're going to be sectioned under the Mental Health Act. And sometimes they will section them under the Mental Health Act in terms of the fact that they'll be like, yes, you did this, but they were not aware or they didn't have the mental capacity to really know what they were doing or whatever. And
Right.
some of those crimes were not crimes that you could literally lock these people up forever on a mental health ward. And so sometimes the people would say, oh, I think I'm better now. I want to be let back out into society. And of course, they're not. Society, government is not going to be like, yeah, okay, let's open the door. So what they would do is they would go to a solicitor, and the solicitor would then hire a psychiatrist, which is when they would come to us. So our psychiatrist would then see the person who is on a mental health ward and talk to them and then prepare a report. And based on that report, the solicitor can take the report into the court and say, hey, we've got this psychiatrist who says XYZ, this person's fine now, they can get back out in society. So what we did for the psychiatrist was we would send the reports to so we managed the psychiatrist, whether I was looking through the reports and editing them and sending the reports to the to the solicitors and following up. Sometimes we would arrange the visits between the psychiatrist and the prisoner, as it were, because sometimes they were actually in prison. Now I remember, sometimes they were in prison, but they were in low, they were not maximum security. Right. And so that was basically what we're doing. And I remember this particular time, we got a new psychiatrist on the books. I had never met him, but his report came through the general system thing that they were supposed to send it to, and I edited it. And I still remember going through it and thinking, gosh, I hope he's not going to be offended because I've changed some of the words. I could see that the psychiatrist was Nigerian and is an older man, and I was like, gosh, I hope he's not going to be offended. Yeah. But I didn't hear anything negative back, so I thought, okay, that's fine, done my job and all that. Now, a while later, there was this week I didn't go to work. I wasn't feeling well, and there was this newspaper, this free newspaper around London. I don't know if they still do it. It's called The Voice, and I remember that I picked up this paper, and I saw this advertisement saying, if you want to publish a book, this is the number to call. I call up the number, have this full-on conversation with this person on the other end. At the end of the conversation, it hits me, you don't know who you're talking to. I didn't ask the name, I don't know why. I ask him his name, person starts laughing. I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is going to be interesting. I've just acquired a stalker for myself, haven't I? And he calls his name, and he is the psychiatrist I've been working for. And I'm completely blown away. And he says, listen, the first day that you did my work, I noticed you. I didn't know who you were, but I noticed because it was different. Other admin assistants in that office have done this work before, but you changed some words and you did certain things that actually made the report read better. And it's so funny that was the very thing I was concerned would be problematic. And he said, no, it wasn't. In fact, it was so good that I called up your boss. We had a conversation about you. And she told me your story, told me you like to write, you want to be published. And I have a publishing company. I did not know this about this guy at all. And so he and my then boss came to an agreement that he would not approach me and she shouldn't tell me anything. But if I happen to find out by myself somehow that he owns a publishing company, that he's going to help me publish my book. And that's basically what happened. 18 months after that conversation, my first book, Forever There For You, came out.
I am blown away.
That's the short version of the story.
I'm like blown. This is such an incredible story. Let me make sure that I've got you right. So
yes,
after you get your law degree, which you really don't want, you went to a company that did a combination of medical and law, and you were interpreting the doctor's reports, the psychiatrist's report for the prisoner, and turning it over to the solicitor. So you would edit those reports to whatever, for it to be more accurate or sound better or whatever. And so that's what you were doing. The man that was your boss also owned a publication company, and you just serendipitously one day picked up a free paper in the UK, opened it up, and the ad says, do you want to publish a book? And you call, and it ends up, it's the doctor or the person that you were already working for to begin with.
One of the doctors, because we had so it was like, so we had a rota number of psychiatrists, and he was one of them.
Wow.
yeah, he was one of our psychiatrists. So he wasn't my boss in that sense. He was our client,
Okay.
right? And
Right. Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, and his client was the law firm and the law firm's client was the prisoner or the person on the mental health ward. So it was like a long sort of chain, but our
Right.
part was to help his client look good for their own client, right? So he would go see the prisoner and write a report. So he would make some observations about, and just basically to say, this person with medication and management can function in normal society, or no, don't do that. And
Right.
he would send us the report, and we would look through the report, edit it, and just make sure everything was fine. Then we would send it to his client, which is the solicitor, along with the invoice of the bill and all that. And they would do whatever it is that was needed to do with the report. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So now, and let me ask you, what year was this? This is what?
Two, 2010.
2010. So
Yes.
2010, and then 18 months later, you've
Mm-hmm.
published your first book.
Yes. Yes.
And your first book is titled again,
Forever there for you.
Forever There for You. That is a
Yes.
fictional novel that you wrote.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So while you're working with this company, you
Mm-hmm.
have been writing this novel all along, and or you took that 18 months to write that book.
No, no. I had been writing that all along.
Okay.
It was actually the second thing that I'd written, the second in my mind full length novel that I'd written. So the first one that I thought I would publish, it didn't really, I don't know why, it just didn't really happen. And this one was the one that I just kept writing, and it took quite a while. And the funny thing is that after my first year at uni, so the summer between my first finish my first year and starting my second year at uni, I met somebody who figured out that I could write, and
Okay.
so I thought she was my friend, and it turned out that she wasn't. I learned that a very hard way. So after I met her, she actually then traveled to the United States of America. She went to the New York Film Academy to study producing and directing. Her ambition was to be a producer. She said she wanted to be the Tyler Perry of Nollywood. Nollywood is Nigeria, is to Nigeria what Hollywood is to the United States.
Right.
And the problem is that she could not write. And you can't, no matter how much education you have, you can't produce and direct something that doesn't exist, right? So
Right.
her plan was to use my stuff and use it without permission. So in that 5 year friendship, from my first year till just after I'd finished uni and I was already working at this company, I had very stupidly shared with her five or six different pieces of my work. And when I say it wasn't just this is not scraps of paper. It was the original manuscript for what eventually turned into Forever There for You. There was a television drama series script. There was stage production, film production script, all of that. I don't know what I was thinking about. It was horrible. And so when she finished in New York, she then traveled to Nigeria, and I didn't really know anything about her plans. And her plan was to use my work, so basically like make movies out of my work, and without telling me. But somehow she kept running into problems, and somebody told her, this is very bad karma, you need to call this girl and take permission from her. So she calls me, or rather no, she emails me. And does she email to take permission? No, she emails to threaten me and order me to sign over my like all the rights to my work to her. And I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, are you paying me for this? She says no, and that if I don't do it, she's going to use it anyway, and there's nothing I'm going to do. That um I can't sue her, which she was right about, because I would have to sue her in Nigeria. In Nigeria, the legal system is at best, it's very slow. I'm talking like it can take up to 15 years for a case to get to the courts of first instance. So of course I'm not going to do that. And at worst, it's corrupt. So she was like, listen, if you don't sign it over to me, I'm going to use it anyway. If you try and sue me, I am going to tie you up in court for the next 5 years, and you're not going to send money. In the meantime, I'm going to use your work and make my name and my money. And she said to me, Nigerians are too stupid to know the truth anyway. So you're not going to win in a court of law, and you're definitely not going to win in a court of public opinion, which is where, because Nigeria doesn't have a jury system. So court of public opinion would be what would matter. And she's like, Nigerians are too stupid to know the truth. Like they're going to believe anything I tell them. And I remember feeling like really down and just really sad. And it was summer. I was shaking in the office, and my boss would pass and be like, what is going on? So I'd read these emails during my break, and she's like, we're in the middle of a freaking heat wave. Why are you shaking? And I had to tell her, and she's like, oh gosh, this is really bad. So I call up somebody that I went to primary school with, and I say, hey, this is what's happened. The person is like, how did this happen? You're supposed to be smart. I'm like, that's really not the point. Help me draw up some sort of agreement that's going to make her like cease and desist. So the person draws up the agreement, asks me for an address to send to the thief. And I don't have an address. And I'm like, wow, this is not going to end well. And then I remember another classmate of mine. This is a guy. I call him up and I'm like, I don't know why I'm calling you and I'm telling you this, but I need your help. I don't even know what you can do about it. This person has done this to me and they're threatening me on top of it. Can you do anything about it? He says, oh yeah, sure, I'll fix it for you. Someone threatened you. Okay, that's fine. I'll deal with it. 2 weeks later, this girl calls me, says, oh, I don't know why you had to get people involved, like da 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 da. And I went, wait, why? You're scared? And she went, I deleted all your stuff off of my system. I will never use any of your stuff. And so that was sorted. I spoke to my boss about it. My boss was like, okay, listen, I know that you want to be a writer and you've probably gone through a lot of rejection, but if someone was willing to fake a friendship with you for 5 years to steal your writing, then you are really good. And I've read your writing, try again. And it was in the middle of my trying again that I picked up that newspaper, that free newspaper, and then found my publisher, and things took off from there.
Oh, I'm mind blown again. You just keep mind blowing me during this entire interview. First of all, there's so much to unpack here. This person who was supposed to be your friend, like you said, you learned the very hard way. So anybody listening to this interview, younger people, maybe, you got to watch who you're claiming as friends, first of all. And, it just was a very sad thing. She must have been a very sad person. First of all, to want to steal your work, that just to want to outright steal your work was horrible. The second thing to say, the Nigerian, and she's Nigerian, correct, as you are Nigerian.
Yes.
And for her to say that they were too stupid, people were too stupid, and she could win that's a horrible thing to say. So to say the least, I'm glad you got away from that person. And whatever your good friend did for you, the second person you called, we just have to just be glad he did whatever he did, and
he's pretty amazing, and I know that. And it's so funny, like I know he will go to bat for me wherever, whenever. Like it's like and I got to that point where I was like, what did you do? How did you even fix this? And he's like, that's not your business.
He
says about it. Yeah, he said he will never tell me, and that was 2010, and he didn't. This is what, 12 years later? I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Let's just let that be, because she whatever he did, she deserved it. Whatever. She deserved it. She's not that kind of a person to be nice to, really. I'm just going to put that there. Now, so surely that lesson you have all of your materials copyrighted from day one,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I would assume so, that all of your material is protected. It brings me and reminds me of the story of, are you familiar with Ilyana Van Zant?
Yes, I am. Yes, I've heard of
Yes.
her. Yes.
Yes. So in the 90s, I think it was the 90s or maybe the early 2000s, she was introduced to the public by Oprah Winfrey. She was frequently on Oprah's show, and Ilyana wrote a series of books, inspirational books, self-care type of books. She wrote a whole bunch of them. She was immensely popular with African
Mm-hmm.
American women, African American Christian or professional women. Very, very encouraging and very inspirational. As a matter of fact, her latest show, which I think now is stop production, was called Fix Your Life on the OWN um, state.
Network.
And so she wrote all these popular books, and you were like so happy and so proud for her. And then she lost all the rights to them. She didn't do the business end. She did not protect herself. And when I read that, I was so saddened by that, because she did so much great work for women, particularly African American women, with her inspiration and encouragement. And to know that she lost all of that and I think she was broke. She was bankrupt until she came back up. But that's what can happen literally if you do not protect your creative work. Somebody can just steal it and take it from there. And so I'll take this little part here to say, for any creator, whether it's an official, say, musician, or somebody like yourself, a writer, somebody like myself, a podcast, or any other creative content direction that you're taking, protect your work. That, to be said, is protect your work, and pay for your work too. Don't steal
Yeah. Yeah.
good works, pay for your work as well. So that's an important key thing to take from this interview as well. So now that we've gotten through your how you even became to be a writer, which was a huge surprise, and the friend that was going to steal your work. Okay, so now we're 18 months ahead, and you published your book. And so tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your book without giving away any spoilers.
So the premise of the book is just how does a daddy's girl from Nigeria who has never been in a toxic relationship in her life end up with an abusive husband in the UK? Um, it, just because I think some people think it cannot happen. I
Mhm.
remember that when I was researching for the book, some of the opinions that I came up against, I was like, these people are ridiculous. And so I had to then incorporate sort of answers to those opinions, because I was hearing things like, oh, a woman can only be in an abusive relationship or marriage if her father was abusive, and that's the only thing she saw growing up,
Oh,
and it can only happen. Yeah, I know. I was like, what is weird? What planet are you people living on?
right.
And or if she grew up in what the Americans would call the projects, and what the British would call council estate, and what we Nigerians would call the slums. And so people were like, oh, domestic violence doesn't happen to people who are rich and who've got money and who are educated. I was like, what? No. And so I created the main character and just people around her. So she's very privileged, and she's that sort of person that you would think this can never happen to her, especially not looking at her, because like I said, she's an only child. She's very pampered. I would not necessarily say spoiled, although some people who've read it have said so. But she's just the kind of person. I mean, if there was a kind of person that you would expect that to happen to, it just would not be her. She does not fit whatever profile people think is the profile of a victim of domestic violence, right? And
Right.
so the book just explores just how that happens, because you know how sometimes you think this person is sort of set for life in a certain way. How did this other thing happen? How did they end up this other way? And so that's basically what the book explores.
Wow, wow. It certainly has a wonderful premise. And so, a Nigerian daddy's girl,
Hmm.
child,
Yeah.
only child, marries a man, goes to the UK, and then
No,
she
no, she goes to the UK and she meets the man in the UK and marries him there, and turns out that he's not, yeah, he's not he's not good people.
right, got you. And now, so let me ask this question about her husband. So is he Nigerian or is he mixed or what background does that character have?
He is Nigerian as well, and that's actually part of that's part of the issue, because he is Nigerian and he is from her tribe. So in Nigeria, we have very different, like we have many tribes, and there was a time. I mean, I can't speak for the whole of Nigeria, but there was a time in Nigeria where intertribal marriages were not encouraged at all.
Right.
And so she marries this guy who is from her tribe, and does he's also educated and he goes to the same church as her and all that, so he looks like Mr. Perfect on every count. However, before that, she actually dated a guy who was half Nigerian, half Ghanaian, and there was a problem there because she knew after certain conversations with her dad and her mom that that would never happen, because her parents have a history, or rather her mom has a history of dating somebody from another tribe, and it didn't end well for her. So there's that thing of, no, I'm never going to let this happen. And so there's that. Throughout the book there are also these uh, generational clashes and cultural issues where, she's 20 something and she's carrying the burden of a 50 something year old parent or
Mhm.
relative because of, yeah. So and you kind of go, oh, but you're in the UK now, this thing shouldn't matter. But then some of the people that she surrounds herself with have that same exact same mindset as if they were still in Nigeria, and not just in Nigeria, but a certain part of Nigeria. I remember that there was a time when I had to attend a wedding in some part of London that was just, gosh, it was so horrible. I'm sorry. But I remember the people that I attended the wedding with, they were like, how do you relocate? How do you leave Nigeria and then you come and end up in this part of London? Your mentality will not change, right? And so it's that thing of, sometimes you can physically move, but you don't really grow or change as a person, or you become worse because of the environment or the people that you find yourselves with. And so there's all of that going on in the book. So, just because she's brilliant and pretty and she's privileged and all that, she doesn't exist in a vacuum. She has a community, and the different parts the and when I say community, I mean people, the people that are around her. She's not just with Caucasian people or English people. There are some Nigerians who have certain ideas and mindsets that they brought with them from Nigeria and did not change just because, they crossed the border. And so she's struggling with that. She's struggling with what she thinks she knows and what she should do. And there's also that, oh, what people are going to say back home in Nigeria if you do this, if you leave him, this, that. So yeah, there's quite a lot of that going on.
Wow, 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 wow. Sounds very intriguing. So I can't wait to possibly get my hands on that. So let's talk about another book. You have a collection of short stories, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Is that your new book?
It's newer. It's not the newest one. It's newer than Forever There for You. So it's the second one, and it's based right. So a very long time ago, I can't remember when, but I was. I don't think I had gone to uni by then. I read this fiction book where one of the characters said everybody is either running away from something or towards something. And I thought, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I believed it. But then I remember just before I wrote Because Homies, I started having these, I don't know, like these ideas started to marinate in my mind to the effect of, you run till you get home. because
Yeah.
when you're home, you don't need to run anymore, right?
Right.
And so, but then home means different things to different people. For some
Sure.
people, home is a place, and for some people, home is a person where they can be themselves and not be judged and not be,
Right.
demeaned and all that. And for some people, home is a vocation or a job that means where they make more of a difference, like the difference that they make rather is more than to their bank accounts. And so
Right.
that is actually the premise of because home is it's a story, it's a collection of short stories about finding home and coming home, wherever home is to a person, and being home, because sometimes this is something that a lot of people don't realize, that happily ever after thing. Like, say you get married and people go, oh, they got married and live happily ever after. Not really. You need to work. That person can be home for you, but you need to work it out, right? And so that's even in being home, there might be challenges. And so that's the premise of the book, and it's about all these different characters and trying to either make their way home or
Hmm.
come home or be home, whatever home means to them. There's one story which is about an immigrant to Nigeria, funny enough, because, that's not so. I mean, even somebody who is an immigrant to Nigeria and coming to Nigeria and thinking, oh, this is home, for some people, that's like, wait, what are you on about? And the kinds of things that she does and the things that she gets up to in Abuja, um, and how she makes a difference to people who are not her own. She doesn't share DNA with them,
Hmm.
but then that's her own finding home, even in the midst of political upheaval and social things, and and certain things that she has to deal with, partly because she's a woman and partly
Right.
because she's a foreigner. So she comes into Abuja. She doesn't know anybody in Abuja, but the day before she gets into Nigeria, her mentor, who fixed up a job for her and all that in Abuja, her mentor dies of breast cancer. So there's
Oh,
that thing of, oh, great, now I have to figure this out on my own. I don't know anybody here. What do I do? Do I leave? Do I, and then she is set up at a job writing. She's a columnist for a newspaper, and that's meant to be like get your foot in the door kind of thing. She writes this piece, and her editor is like, no freaking way, we're not we're not doing this. But before then, she's written something else that's got the newspaper a lot of traction, a lot of talk, a lot of comments, but people are
mhm,
very annoyed. People are
mhm.
annoyed because in Nigeria, we know what the problem is, we know who the problems are, but when somebody talks about it and says, hey, we need to fix this, everybody turns on that person and it's like, how dare you? And then this girl is effectively a foreigner. So there's that thing of, yo, you foreigner, how dare you come and tell us what to do here? And so by the time she suggests a second article, her editor is like, no, you can't do this. You can't name
Right.
um, the rich and the mighty and all that, and so she resigns. And so it's like that thing of, okay, this is the thing that I thought was going to be my big break. This is what, like, things look pretty streamlined for me, get a job at this paper and all that,
Mhm.
but that's not gonna work. And so she has to figure out and find her own way in a lot of ways. And she's got her own demons. She's got the mentor that died, and she's thinking, oh, can I really, like, this is the person who believed in me, can I really do this without her here? What am I gonna do? And so there's that story.
Right.
And there's another one about a couple who they've got they've got their own issues. I mean, they're personal issues, just individual issues. Who this couple is in love, but then when you're in love with somebody and they love you back, sometimes you have issues of your own that um, you're not you're afraid to tell them about or to show them that part of yourself. And
Right.
and bearing in mind that the premise of the book is that home is where you can be naked and unashamed. So it's that,
Right.
okay, how are we gonna navigate this relationship? And because no matter how much somebody loves you, you want them to think well of you,
Well,
and you think, oh, if I show them this about me, I don't know, are they still gonna love me? Are they going to? And so I mean, the in the couple, the guy is completely in love with this woman who is in the media space, and he thinks, but he suffers depression, right? Which is, and you think, okay, she's in the media space, she's got her own money, I've got depression, what is she going to find? Is she going to find attractive about me enough to stay? But then she suffers from endometriosis, and the funny thing is about
oh,
these two conditions is that they're not written on anybody's face. And so there's that thing of, you have no idea, I mean, what anybody else is going through. Like, you see somebody in the media, they look great, you don't know what they're having to deal with, and so they have to navigate and find their way. And so, and there's a couple of other stories like that, not like that, but other stories where home means different things to those people, and they're having to either find it or be there or just fix something. And some people don't actually make their way home. They can't find
right.
home, wherever it is to them. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's very enlightening. And for you to say that, that sounds like a great collection of short stories. And I think a lot of people need to know that message about home and what it can mean to people. And it means different things to different folks. And so, yeah, that's a great story to have out there. So where are you headed in your writer's journey? What do you have coming up next?
I'm actually the CEO of a storytelling company, and part of what we do is we also publish books. So, I put together 5 of the books that my company has published into a box set, and it's called the Fearless 5x4 box set. And one is a cozy mystery by another author, and that's not me. One is a coming of age book by another author that's not me, and another is a young adult action adventure fiction by another author that's not me. And so we've put that out. Um, Other things that we're doing, so apart from publishing, also teaching authors, not just about writing, but about marketing. And like you said earlier, just protecting yourself, because not just your financial future in that obvious way, but just even in an implied way. So the intellectual property stuff as well, because anyone on social media or even on the internet will see that literally every year there is somebody who wakes up from, I don't know, some kind of slumber and just gets on the internet and cries that years ago they signed something that they should not have signed, and now they've lost all their rights. And you see this in the music industry. It's always someone in the music industry, but I'm guessing that people who are authors as well have to deal with that as well. I also write scripts of a very particular nature, and because I want to do TV someday, not to be on TV, but to be on the back and produce as well. So the idea is that the kinds of people that will like my books will also like what I do, what I produce on TV or on stage. And yeah, that's kind of where it's at the moment.
Well, I am looking forward one day to pulling up Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, seeing your name in the credits, because I really think you can get there.
That would be very lovely. Thanks.
That would be very lovely. Well, we certainly appreciate you coming to our show and giving this gift of your storytelling to our audience. Chioma Nnani,
Yes.
thank you so much
Yes.
for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Bookaholic podcast. We appreciate your support. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Instagram at True Bookaholic. You can also email us at readingjunkie@book-a-holic.com. Don't forget to support your local library and independent bookstores.